when everything around you suddenly becomes a burden, when it seems like the whole world turns its back on you. Have you ever asked yourself what you should do? Often we try to fight back, try to run fast to escape. But the more we struggle, the more exhausted we become. In that moment, the most precious thing isn't to run far away, but to sit in stillness. Sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and you'll realize that peace and stability can be found right within your own breath. The Buddha once taught that the human mind is like the surface of a lake. When strong winds blow, waves rise. But when the wind stops, the lake becomes clear, reflecting the entire sky. We are the same. If we know how to sit in silence, our worries and troubles will gradually settle down. I want you to imagine yourself as a farmer after a long day in the field, under a scorching sun, with heavy shoulders and a heart full of anxiety because the harvest is uncertain. If that farmer continues to race against his worries, his strength will surely quickly run out. But if he knows to stop under a tree, sit down to rest, drink a sip of water, and gaze at the field in the twilight, his heart will be soothed. The problem will still be there, but his mind will be different. And that difference will help him gain enough clarity to know what to do next. You can try it right now. Sit still, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, breathe in slowly, and feel the breath entering your chest. Breathe out gently and release all the burdens weighing you down. Do this 3 times, and you'll find your body feels more comfortable and your mind is somewhat lighter. This is a simple way to return to yourself, and also a path to listen to the Buddha's teachings in daily life. So when everything is against you, instead of struggling, sit down in stillness. Because sometimes you don't need to do anything grand. Just one mindful breath is enough to open up a space of peace in your soul. Have you ever wondered why this life is filled with so much suffering? It seems no matter how hard you try, along life's long journey, sorrow, loss, and pain still find their way to you. Some people have just barely overcome illness, only to face a broken family. Some people do good and live virtuous lives, yet still encounter undesirable things. Then we suddenly let out a sigh. Why is life so unfair? The Buddha once looked directly at that truth. He called this life a sea of suffering. But when you hear the words sea of suffering, don't immediately feel afraid or pessimistic. The Buddha didn't say it to make people more discouraged, but to show us the true nature of life. Because only when we see clearly do we have the opportunity to step out. Just like a sick person, if they don't know they're ill, how will they intend to seek a doctor? The Buddha pointed out suffering not to intimidate, but to give us the key to unlock the door of freedom. Once, someone asked the Buddha, "Revered one, why is it that some people live virtuous, filial lives, always helping others, yet still endure much suffering, illness, and poverty? If karma is truly fair, why is there such injustice?" The Buddha smiled compassionately and explained, "Karmic retribution does not stop at this lifetime alone. What we are receiving is not only due to what we do today, but also the result of many past lives. A virtuous person today maybe repaying residual old karma. But at the same time, they are also sowing good seeds for the future. Therefore, suffering is not a punishment, but an opportunity to eliminate old karma and to learn to grow in mindfulness. Think about it. If a seed isn't buried deep in the soil, enduring darkness and dampness, how can it sprout? Suffering is similar. It's like a thick layer of soil pressing down. But it is precisely because of this that the seed of life has the chance to emerge and reach for the light. If we only see the darkness of the soil and not the rising strength within the seed, we will forever live in fear. But if we understand that suffering is the condition for enlightenment to arise, then we will look at it with different eyes. There's a very simple story from a village. A poor farmer toiled year-round, plowing deeply and working tirelessly. In the dry season, there was drought. In the rainy season, floods. His buffalo was his most precious asset. But one day, the buffalo fell ill and died. The whole village looked at him with pity. Some sighed over his difficult fate. Yet, he calmly said, "The buffalo is dead. But I still have my strength, my hands. This suffering is just a challenge." Afterward, he borrowed a small amount of capital, worked as a laborer to repay his debts, and gradually bought another buffalo. Many years later, he not only paid off all his debts, but also built a stronger house than before. The villagers then realized that the suffering of that day was not an end, but the beginning of a new path. The suffering we encounter, like the death of that buffalo, is just an event. It does not define our entire life. What's important is our attitude when facing it. If we view it as punishment, we will be sorrowful and collapse. But if we view it as an opportunity to learn new lessons, we will become resilient. As the Buddha taught, suffering is the first noble truth. Looking directly at suffering is not to lament, but to understand that within suffering lies the seed of enlightenment. You can try a small exercise right now. Sit down, close your eyes, and inhale deeply. As you exhale, visualize a suffering you are carrying in your heart. Perhaps it is a loss, an insecurity, or some worry. Look directly at it, name it, and silently say in your mind, "I know you are here." With just 3 breaths like this, you will find that suffering becomes lighter. Because when we acknowledge it, we are no longer blindly dragged along by it. Acknowledging is the first step towards liberation. In a poor, working-class neighborhood, there was a woman who sold lottery tickets every day to support her children, rain or shine. Under the scorching sun, the burden of earning a living weighed heavily on her thin shoulders. Sometimes she was sick with a fever, yet still had to drag herself to sell tickets to earn money for her children's food. People looked at her and said she was truly suffering, but in her eyes shone a belief. She often silently chanted, "Namo Amitabha Buddha," with each step. For her, suffering was not a punishment, but a path for her to cultivate love and willpower. Her children, growing up later, remembered their mother, and were always proud that she had taught them the lesson of resilience from those very difficult days. Thus, suffering had become a source of strength, no longer shackles. If you are sitting and listening to me speak, perhaps you too carry many worries in your heart. Don't be afraid, and don't think you are unlucky. Try listening to your breath and remind yourself. Suffering is just a part of the journey. It is not the final destiny. Believe that every tear you shed today will nourish the soil of your soul, so that tomorrow it may blossom into compassion and wisdom. The channel of responsive Buddhist teachings wants to whisper to you, don't avoid suffering, because the more you avoid it, the more it clings. Learn to sit down, look directly at it, and accept it as part of life's conditions. Because when you can calmly face it, you have grasped the door to peace and tranquility. Remember that suffering is not a punishment. Suffering is a teacher, and that teacher comes to show you a brighter path. So, right now, give yourself at least 5 minutes of real quiet. Take 3 slow breaths. Reflect on a specific suffering of yours, and write down one good thing you can do today to turn that suffering into a seed for the future. Who knows? Perhaps from the very place where you once suffered the most, a flower of peace will blossom that you never expected. Have you noticed? In life, there are people who come to bring us joy, to help, support, and encourage us. They are like warm sunshine illuminating cold winter days. But there are also people who appear only to challenge us, to hurt us, to make us stumble. They are like sudden downpours that drench us and make us shiver. So, whom should we thank more? The one who brings us joy, or the one who brings suffering? The answer, if viewed through the light of Buddhist teachings, it's both, because one is a favorable condition, and the other is an adverse condition. Both are indeed teachers who come to teach us lessons of growth on our human journey. The Buddha once taught that this life naturally operates according to causes and conditions. Every encounter, every event that occurs has its causes and conditions. Someone helping us is a favorable condition, but someone harming us is also a condition, just an adverse one. Both are not coincidental, but hold profound meaning in the cultivation of our consciousness. If we only like favorable conditions and reject adverse ones, it's no different from wanting only spring, but not accepting winter. Life needs both sun and rain, both joy and sorrow, for a tree to grow mature and for the mind to ripen. Imagine a farmer growing rice. Warm sun makes the rice grow, rain makes it fresh. But sometimes storms and floods come, and pests destroy it. If he only knew how to complain about the rain and storms, would he have enough strength to get through the harsh seasons to succeed? It is precisely because he faced many difficulties that the farmer learned to cherish every grain of rice, to cultivate skillfully, and to gain experience in saving seeds for the next season. People in life are similar. If there are only advantages, we easily become reliant and our souls grow weak. Only when we encounter adversity do we learn resilience and letting go. There's a small story from a poor neighborhood. A young man worked as a laborer, going to work from early morning until late evening, earning a meager salary, but still saving diligently to support his elderly parents. At the company, there was a boss who constantly criticized and yelled at him, making the young man feel hurt and want to quit many times. But then, thinking of his parents, he patiently endured. He recounted that it was thanks to those harsh words that he learned to be patient, learned to work carefully, and after a few years, he became a skilled manager. Without that adverse condition, he would never have matured. Thus, adverse conditions are not just suffering, but precisely the raw material for self-training. In a village, there was a woman who lost her husband early, raising her child alone by selling vegetables at the market. She was often pushed around by other vendors for selling space, sometimes even being harshly verbally abused. Everyone saw the injustice, but she only smiled. She taught her child that those people were also suffering in their own way. Don't complain, just live virtuously, and heaven and the Buddha will find a way to compensate. Indeed, the child grew up filial and diligent, later becoming successful and repaying their mother's kindness. Without those adverse conditions back then, perhaps she and her child would not have learned the lessons of patience and faith. You see, favorable conditions bring us happiness, but adverse conditions bring us strength. Someone praises us, we are happy. Someone criticizes us, we are sad. But if we know how to see with the eyes of the Buddha, then the one who praises is a teacher, and the one who criticizes is also a teacher. Because praise helps us trust, while criticism helps us reflect on ourselves. Sometimes a criticism hurts us, but it is precisely that which opens up an opportunity for us to change. If there is only praise, we easily fall asleep in illusion. Therefore, adverse conditions are sometimes even more precious than favorable conditions. You can practice a little. Right now, recall someone who's once caused you suffering. Perhaps a fault-finding relative, a difficult colleague, or a friend who betrayed you. Breathe in deeply and mentally call their name. Exhale and silently say, "Thank you for teaching me a lesson." Repeat this for 3 breaths. When you can even thank the person who hurt you, you will feel your heart lighter, no longer resentful, only peaceful. In reality, the person who causes us suffering is sometimes the one who helps us grow the most. Just as fire tempers iron into steel, adversity tempers the mind into wisdom. The Buddha once taught that enemies are bodhisattvas. They come to test our compassion and patience. If we hold on to anger, we lose. If we know how to let go, we win. Winning is not about defeating others, but about defeating ourselves. So when you reflect, remember that no one comes into our lives without meaning. The one who helps us is a benefactor. The one who harms us is also a benefactor. In a different way, both lead us closer to enlightenment. If you are experiencing an adverse condition in your life, don't just complain. Treat it as a teacher. Whenever you feel uneasy, return to your breath, smile, and silently say, "Thank you, adverse condition, because thanks to you, I am learning to grow." When you live with this mindset, your life will change. You will no longer be overly afraid. When encountering obstacles, you will no longer cling too tightly to advantages. You will walk more steadily because you know that whether favorable or adverse, all are conditions. All can be a path leading you to peace. And I want you to try to see life like a river. Sometimes the water is clear, sometimes muddy. Some stretches are calm, some are turbulent. But all are currents. All lead us to the great ocean. Don't just wish the river were always gentle, because it is the rapids that make the water stronger. Our lives are the same. Favorable conditions are calm. Adverse conditions are rapids, and both together create a complete journey. When everything is against you, remember that sometimes it's not truly against you, but merely an adverse condition teaching you an important lesson. Sit down, breathe deeply, accept, and smile. You will see that suffering also has the flavor of fruits and flowers. And at that time, you will no longer resent, but only feel grateful, because life has sent you teachers in both favorable and adverse conditions. My dear friend, have you ever wondered why, for the same event, each person perceives it differently? Some people, upon hearing a criticism, feel upset all day. Others simply smile and let it pass. Some people, losing a small item, immediately become irritable and complain, while others look at it and gently let it go. The same truth, the same circumstances, yet two completely different states of mind, two different lives. This clearly shows us that what determines our joy or sorrow lies not externally, but within our own mind. The Buddha taught a short but profound statement. The mind is the forerunner of all phenomena. This means all our perceptions, actions, and words originate from the mind. If the mind is clear and peaceful, this life is like a garden full of blooming flowers. But if the mind is filled with anger and resentment, each day is like living in hell. Try to look back at your day. Have you ever woken up with a heavy heart, thinking about work, thinking about unpleasant things from yesterday? You step out, and if someone accidentally cuts you off or says something you don't like, you easily get angry. Throughout the day, that mood clings to you like a gray cloud, making everything that happens afterward feel heavier. Meanwhile, if on that same day you started with a mindset of gratitude, knowing that you can still breathe, still go to work, still have a family to return to, then perhaps small bumps wouldn't make you lose your smile. In reality, the world doesn't change. Only your mind changes. The ancients often compared the mind to a boatman. No matter how large the boat, no matter how strong the offshore winds, if the boatman is alert and steady, the boat will still sail in the right direction. But if the boatman is drunk and loses control, even a small wave is enough to capsize the entire boat. Our mind is the same. If the mind is dragged by anger, greed, and delusion, then even if we live amidst luxury, we will still feel uneasy. Conversely, if the mind is full of mindfulness, gentleness, and compassion, then even in hardship, we will still find joy. I recall the story of a farmer in the village. He tilled and cultivated all year round. His life was not very prosperous. One year, the harvest failed, and the rice was completely lost due to a storm. Many villagers cried, mourned, and even blamed heaven and earth. As for him, even though he lost everything, he calmly said, "If the rice is lost, I'll replant. Whatever heaven gives, I accept. But if I still have my life and strength, I can rebuild." Everyone was surprised to hear him speak. It turns out peace did not come from his having a good harvest, but from a mind that didn't complain, that knew how to accept and rely on causes and conditions. And thanks to that mind, he lived more lightly than many others in the village, despite sharing the same circumstances. That is clear proof of the Buddha's teaching. The mind is the forerunner of all phenomena. Another time, I met a young factory worker. She recounted that every time her manager scolded her, she would be so resentful she couldn't sleep. The next day, she would be distracted at work, and by the end of the month, her salary would decrease. But then one day, she happened to hear the Buddha's teaching about the mind. She tried to change. Each time she was scolded, instead of crying or getting angry, she told herself, "This is an opportunity for me to learn patience. That person is just doing their job." Surprisingly, when she changed her mindset, she felt less stressed. After a few months, she gradually got used to it, finding that the scolding no longer tormented her as before. Life remained the same, but she was much more at peace. You see, the mind is like the glasses we wear. If the glasses are dirty, everything we look at appears blurry and unpleasant. If the glasses are clean, the surrounding scenery immediately becomes clear and pleasant. No need to change the whole world. Just clean the glasses of your own mind. Now you can try a small practice. Sit still. Relax your shoulders. Close your eyes, inhale deeply, and silently tell yourself, I am breathing in with a peaceful mind. Exhale, gently smile, and tell yourself, I release all anger. I am breathing out in lightness. Repeat this 3 times. When you open your eyes, try to observe your mind. Just one conscious breath is enough to change our heart. If you want to go further, every night before bed, write down one good thing that happened during the day, even if it's very small, like a smile from a stranger or a simple but sufficient meal. Write it down to cultivate a grateful mind, and so that each morning when you wake up, you can start your day with peace. So when everything is against you, instead of blaming life or others, turn inward and look at your own mind. Because, as the Buddha taught, the mind is the forerunner of all phenomena. If the mind harbors anger, life will become hell. If the mind is full of mindfulness and compassion, then right in this very life, you are already living in the Pure Land. The important thing is not to escape suffering, but to train your mind to stand firm amidst that suffering. And every day, give yourself a few minutes to breathe, to smile, to realize that peace has never left you. It is still right within your mind, just waiting for you to open your heart to see it. My dear friend, have you ever asked yourself where we seek happiness and what path we must take to reach it? Many of us believe that happiness lies at some destination. We think that when we have a more stable job, when we build a more spacious house, when our children grow up, when we have more money, then we can feel at peace and smile. But throughout the journey of waiting for that then, how many times have we missed the moments present right before our eyes? The Buddha once taught that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. That is not a saying to hang in books, but a truth to illuminate daily life. You can try stopping for a moment and looking around you right now. A morning with birds singing in the garden, a bowl of fragrant, soft white rice at the family meal, a moment of sitting still and taking a deep breath. All those seemingly small things are happiness itself. But because we are constantly chasing after the so-called destination of happiness, we often don't realize it's right beside us. We often forget that a flower blooming by the roadside, a cool, breezy afternoon, or even just a glass of water can be enough to lighten one's heart at other times. Happiness is not distant. Just an open heart in mindfulness is enough to recognize it. Someone once told a story about a farmer who woke up very early every morning to go to the fields before it was fully light. He wasn't rich, had no great assets, but he always wore a gentle smile when he saw rice sprouts emerging, when his buffalo leisurely walked ahead, plowing the field. For him, happiness was not a hidden treasure somewhere, but every step taken in the field, every drop of sweat that fell, ensuring a full meal for the whole family tomorrow. Outsiders might consider such a life hard work, but in his kind eyes shone peace, because he understood that the path he was walking was happiness. There was also a factory worker at a rattan workshop. Her life was not very prosperous, but every noon she would call her mother in the countryside just to hear her mother laugh and ask a few questions. At those times, she felt her heart warm. Often, we don't need grand things. Just a beloved voice, a sincere presence is enough to make us happy. That is also a reminder from the Dharma. Happiness is not something distant, but the complete presence in every moment we are living. If we keep chasing the illusion of future happiness, we will be like someone searching for the moon, without realizing its reflection is peacefully right beneath their feet on the water's surface. The Buddha taught that all sentient beings have the capacity for joy and peace. But it is insatiable craving that blinds us to what is inherently beautiful, right in the present. When we stop to take a deep breath, we realize we are still alive, still have the opportunity to love, to forgive, to care for ourselves and those around us. That is the foundation of true happiness. Now, I want to invite you to try a small practice. You can sit right where you are. Gently close your eyes, inhale deeply, and silently tell yourself, I am still alive. I am grateful for this moment. Exhale, gently smile, and feel the burden in your heart gradually being released. Inhale for the second time. Think of a simple thing in life that makes you grateful. Perhaps it's your health. Perhaps a loved one who is still beside you. Exhale, allowing that gratitude to spread through every cell. Inhale for the third time. Silently say, happiness is present right here. Exhale. Smile at the present. Just 3 simple breaths are enough to calm our mind and realize that happiness is not to be sought far away. You see, sometimes a smile with a passerby, a simple meal with loved ones gathered around, or a quiet afternoon sitting with a cup of tea is already happiness. When we know how to cherish simple things, every step we take becomes a joyful note in the song of life. Don't wait until you have everything before allowing yourself to be happy. Because at that time, you might find yourself still lacking something else. Happiness is never at a destination. It is always present in every moment we are living, if we are willing to open our hearts to recognize it. So, from today, you can try to dedicate a few minutes each day to practice. When you wake up, instead of rushing into the daily grind, pause, take a breath, and smile, telling yourself that you have another day to live, to love, to be peaceful. When eating, eat mindfully, feeling the flavor of each grain of rice. Think of the efforts of countless people who sowed, harvested, and transported it so you could have this meal. When walking on the road, pay attention to your steps to see the ground supporting you every moment. My dear friend, happiness is the path, and we are walking that path every day. Don't wait for a distant miracle. Don't think that only when life is less turbulent can we smile. In fact, it is precisely in adversity that we most need to recognize happiness from ordinary things. Let your heart open so you can touch happiness in every present moment. And when you can do that, you will realize that whether life is smooth sailing or full of storms, your steps on the path of happiness will always be steady and peaceful. My dear friend, have you ever sat alone in a small room, looked back at the path you've traveled, and asked yourself why you've had to endure so much suffering and pain? There are times when everything around us seems to be against us, from work and family to close relationships. Some lose their jobs. Some experience broken marriages. Some are suddenly struck by illness. These pains are like a thick, sticky mud, making us feel as if we are being submerged with no way out. In such moments, we often think we are unfortunate, that suffering is only meant to torment and crush us. But if we calm our minds a little, listening to our breath moving in and out, we will realize that right within that mud, a lotus seed is germinating, to grow and bloom. The seed of enlightenment is often awakened by suffering, and suffering itself is fertile ground for the soul's growth. The Buddha once taught that this life is inherently impermanent, and no one can escape suffering. But he didn't stop there. He also showed us that suffering is the foundation of enlightenment. Without suffering, we cannot truly understand the value of peace and tranquility. Just as a person who has never been thirsty will never truly appreciate a refreshing sip of water. Someone who has never been lost in darkness can hardly see how precious light is. In the Four Noble Truths, the first truth the Buddha taught is the truth of suffering, dukkha. Because only by looking directly at suffering can we begin to seek the path to liberation. He did not teach us to escape suffering, nor to deny it, but to recognize it, embrace it, and transform it. Try to think of a lotus seed. The tiny lotus seed is sown into muddy, turbid, foul-smelling mud, seemingly without any value. Yet it is precisely in that mud that the lotus seed is nourished. Without mud, the lotus cannot grow. Without mud, the lotus flower will never emit its fragrant scent. Likewise, if we have never experienced days of suffering, we will never truly understand what peace is, what happiness is. Suffering does not ruin us. Suffering is the very material for us to grow, for us to blossom from deep within our souls. I remember the story of a woman in a poor village. Her husband went to work far away, leaving her alone at home to raise 3 small children. Life was already difficult. Then one day, she discovered she had an illness, painful, worrisome, and at times she thought she couldn't overcome it. But then, during her days in the hospital, she recounted that she began chanting the Buddha's name. At first, it was just the phrase, Amitabha Buddha, when her heart was too distressed. But day after day, the chanting became a source of support. She said that it was during those days of illness that she truly understood impermanence, felt more love for her children, and could perceive happiness in every breath she took, realizing she was still alive. Illness did not cause her to collapse. Instead, it sowed a seed of peace in her heart. Suffering had caused her to blossom in enlightenment, or the story of a worker who lost his job after many years of dedication. He was bewildered and worried, not knowing how he would support his family. During those months, he once thought his life had reached a dead end. But then, in his time of hardship, he learned to reflect on himself, discovering skills he had never noticed before. It was thanks to that fall that he found a new, more stable and suitable job. Later, he said that if he hadn't gone through that period of deadlock, he would probably have continued living in the old cycle without ever discovering his true potential. It turns out that adversity can also be a gift. It's just wrapped in the paper of suffering. My dear friend, such is suffering. It does not come to destroy us, but to awaken us. When we are suffering, try sitting down placing your hand on your chest, feeling your heartbeat, and asking yourself, is this heart still beating? Meaning we are still alive. We still have the opportunity to transform, to love, to learn to cherish every moment. If we only look at suffering with resentment, we will see it as a burden. But if we look at suffering with mindful eyes, we will see it as a seed of enlightenment. Now, the channel of responsive Buddhist teachings wants to invite you to practice a little. Close your eyes, relax your shoulders, inhale deeply, feeling the air flow into your body, nourishing you. Then slowly exhale, releasing the worries in your heart. Do this 3 times. While breathing, you can silently tell yourself, suffering is not meant to torment me. Suffering helps me grow. Every breath is a reminder. Every breath is a lotus blooming in your soul. You see, just a few breaths are enough to calm the heart. And if every day we spend a few minutes breathing mindfully, contemplating suffering, we will see that within suffering lies a gift. That is the gift of awakening, the gift of gratitude, the gift of growth. To conclude this section, I want to tell you that suffering is not the end. It is merely a path for you to walk through, only to realize that beyond it, there is still dawn. Like a lotus seed in the mud, you too can rise above the darkness to blossom in the light. Don't fear suffering. Embrace it. Learn from it. Then you will see that precisely from within suffering, a new life, a new soul is gradually blossoming. Have you ever asked yourself why there are so many worries and vexations in your heart? Why is it that just a casual remark from someone is enough to upset us all day? Why does a small failure make us sad, resentful, even thinking that this entire life is against us? If you sit down in silence, you will see that these sorrows, angers, and resentments do not come from outside. They arise from deep within us, from the self that always wants everything to go its way. The Buddha once taught that true happiness does not come from having much wealth, fame, or external advantages. Happiness comes from understanding ourselves. When our mind is no longer swept away by anger, sorrow, and resentment, when we clearly see the root of all reactions within us, then we can begin to transform suffering. Because ultimately, life is not against you at all. It is simply that in ignorance, you have created a war with reality. And day by day, you bring suffering upon yourself. Do you remember the last time you were really angry with someone? Perhaps it was a close friend who disappointed you, or a family member who didn't understand you. Anger surged, and in your head, you only thought they were wrong, that you were treated unfairly. But if you look closely, you will see that this anger originates from the self within us. The self that wants to be understood, wants to be right, wants others to conform to its will. When that self is hurt, we immediately erect a wall of anger. In reality, others are merely an excuse. It is we ourselves who ignite the fire within our hearts. A farmer in the village once shared that he had an argument with his son over farm work. The young son angrily left. The father also harbored resentment for a whole month, thinking his son was disrespectful and looked down on his father. But then, upon reflection, he suddenly realized he was also partly wrong. Because of his self as a father, because of his pride, he had not been willing to listen and yield. Later, when he understood, he proactively called his son home, spoke gently, and all misunderstandings vanished. He smiled and said, "It turns out, It wasn't the boy who caused the father suffering, but the father's own self that caused him suffering. That simple sharing contained a great lesson about transformation. In Buddhist teachings, the cause of suffering is ignorance, which means not seeing the true nature of all phenomena. When we think everything is against us, that is ignorance. In reality, life is simply operating according to cause and effect and dependent origination. Every event that comes to us is not to punish, but to illuminate and show us ourselves. If we know how to listen, we will realize that challenges are mirrors reflecting our self. The person who scolds us, the person who makes us sad, is our teacher, because they help us realize where our mind is not yet stable, where it is still fragile. So, are you ready to sit still for a moment to practice? Gently close your eyes. Relax your whole body. As you breathe in, feel a cool breeze entering your lungs. As you breathe out, release a bit of resentment in your heart. Breathe in. You realize you are still alive, still have the opportunity to understand and love. Breathe out. Smile at yourself. Repeat this for 3 breaths. And then ask yourself, who truly brought this anger, this sadness? Or is it the self within me wanting to resist the truth? You see, just a few breaths are enough to make us calmer, to look back at our heart with different eyes. That is precisely the practice of mindfulness that the Buddha once taught. Mindfulness is not distant, not only found in meditation halls. It lies in every breath, every moment we live with awareness. And remember, happiness never comes from waiting for the external world to change. Happiness begins when you understand and accept yourself. When you clearly see the roots of anger and sadness, you will no longer blame others. At that time, you will smile and say, "Life is not against me. It's just that for too long, I didn't know how to sit down and listen to myself." Try to record a small action today. It could be smiling when someone irritates you. It could be staying silent for a moment before uttering harsh words, or simply reminding yourself to take 3 deep breaths whenever you feel angry. These small actions are the first steps for you to transform the ego, for you to live more peacefully amidst the flow of life. So don't think the world is against you. Remember that this life is a mirror reflecting your mind. When there is understanding and compassion in the mind, that mirror will be clear and bright. When the mind is full of anger and blame, that mirror will be dim and dark. Ultimately, only you are the one who decides your own happiness or suffering. Let me gently remind you one more time. Life is not against you. Sit down. Listen to your breath. Listen to yourself. Everything you've been searching for all this time has always been within your heart. Have you ever sat alone late at night, your heart heavy with a sorrow you didn't know how to share with anyone? There are times when we feel as if the whole world is turning its back on us. Faith shatters. Dreams remain unfinished, and our hearts are torn by wounds difficult to name. In those moments, we often just want to escape, to push suffering far away. But strangely, the more we try to chase it away, the more that sorrow clings to us. The more we try to forget, the louder the cries within our hearts echo. The Buddha taught that practice is not to immediately end suffering, but to suffer less, so that when pain is present, we still have a place of peace. He likened suffering to a crying child. And in that moment, what the child needs is not scolding or abandonment, but a gentle, compassionate embrace. When we dare to sit down and look directly at our suffering with the eye of mindfulness, we have begun the healing process. Suffering, whatever its name, is like that child. If we chase it away, it cries louder. If we judge it, it gets more hurt. But if we are willing to sit down and gently embrace it, then naturally, the crying will subside. In daily life, how many of us have not experienced loss, disappointment, or times when loved ones hurt our feelings? Some lose their jobs, some lose loved ones, some see their families break apart, and some simply feel that this life is too heavy. If we only blame ourselves, saying we are weak or unfortunate, it is no different from scolding that crying child. That child will cry even more fiercely. But if we gently breathe out, softly smile, and say to the pain, "I see you. I understand you are here. I will embrace you with mindful arms," then in that very moment, we will no longer be swept away by suffering. The channel of responsive Buddhist teachings recalls a time returning to the countryside to visit a cousin who lived in a poor rural area working in rattan processing. Her husband left her, leaving behind 2 small children. The day I visited, she sat silently by the rattan machine, her eyes vacant. I asked, "Why do you look so sad?" She just sighed. Every day is the same. Food, clothes, money, children. Many nights I cry alone because I feel like I don't have the strength to carry it all. She said there were times she just wanted to run away somewhere to avoid facing the accumulated suffering. But then she stopped and said that later, after reading a passage of Buddhist scripture, she realized that suffering also needs to be embraced, not treated as an enemy to be defeated. Every evening, she practiced sitting down, breathing in and out, placing her hand on her chest as if embracing herself. She just said to her sorrow, "I know you are here. I will not abandon you." Strangely, after a few weeks, she was no longer as afraid as before. The suffering was still there, but it had softened because of the illuminating light of mindfulness. That story reminded me of the Buddha's teaching. Suffering is a part of life. We cannot completely eliminate suffering, but we can learn how to transform it. Just like farmers in the field, when storms come, they cannot stop the rain, but they know how to shelter, how to wait, so that after the rain, the rice plants will be greener. Suffering is similar. If we know how to embrace it with compassion, it will become fertile ground, nourishing understanding and love. The worker I once knew also shared a story with me. He worked at a brick factory, a tough job with a meager salary. Once, due to carelessness, he injured his hand, feeling both pain and worry, unsure how his family would manage. During his days in the hospital, he felt helpless, even angry at his fate. But then a monk from a nearby temple visited, teaching him how to breathe mindfully. The monk said, "Consider this pain like a child. It is crying. You don't need to chase it away. Just breathe in and out. Acknowledge the pain and embrace it with the peace in your heart." At first, he didn't believe it, but then he tried to follow the advice. He recounted that each time he exhaled, imagining he was placing his hand on the shoulder of a crying friend, His heart gradually lightened. The pain was still there, but it no longer tormented him as before. Do you see? When we change the way we perceive suffering, we also change our entire life. Compassion is not just for others, but also for ourselves. We often easily pity others, but are strict with ourselves. When we fail, we blame ourselves. When we are sad, we consider it a weakness. But if we know how to be compassionate towards ourselves, we will no longer feel alone. Because when compassion turns inward, it becomes a miraculous healing medicine. Now I invite you to try a small practice. Sit up straight. Relax both shoulders. Breathe in deeply, feeling the air enter. Breathe out slowly, gently smiling. Inhale for the second time. Place your right hand on your heart, as if embracing yourself. Exhale for the second time. Silently say, I know my suffering is here. Inhale for the third time. Gently say, I will care for you with compassion. Exhale for the third time. Allow your heart to settle like a tranquil lake. With just 3 breaths, you can reach deep-seated comfort. If you practice every day, gradually, you will find that suffering is no longer a frightening ghost. It is just a part of life. And when embraced, it becomes the material for you to grow more, to be gentler and more loving. My dear, remember that embracing suffering is not weakness, but courage. Courage to face yourself. Courage not to abandon the crying child within your soul. When you can do that, you will feel a new source of energy surging. That is the power of compassion, a power that nothing in this world can compare to. And when you go out into the world, carrying that compassionate mind, you will also find it easier to empathize with others. Because you know that each of us has our own suffering. It's just that few have enough courage to admit it. When you see the tears of others, you will not be quick to judge, because you understand that you yourself have cried in the same way. And then, with just a word of comfort, a handhold, you can give them the belief that they are not alone. So in the coming days, if you feel your heart sinking, please don't rush to complain. Sit down, breathe, embrace suffering with compassion. That is not only a path to overcome challenges, but also a way for you to become a compassionate and steadfast person. Like a river after a rain, when the muddy water settles, it will become clearer than ever. Your heart is the same. After embracing suffering, it will shine brightly with the light of understanding and love. Have you ever felt your heart heavy because someone hurt you? There are words, actions, like a knife carving deep into the heart. Even if much time has passed, we still feel pain, still remember, still cannot let go. Many of us carry resentment in our hearts throughout our lives, so that each time we remember, it's like wind fanning a sleeping flame, making us unable to find peace. But will holding on to those angers and resentments make us happier? Or will it only make us more tired and suffer more? The Buddha once taught that when we hold anger and hatred in our hearts, it is no different from holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. But first, our own hand is burned. Resentment does not hurt the other person more. Instead, it burns our own heart, causing us to lose the peace that naturally resides in a forgiving mind. Therefore, it is not to bestow favor upon the person who hurt us. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves to free ourselves from the shackles of suffering. In the scriptures, there is a story about 2 bhikkhus monks, traveling together a long distance. When they reached a river, they saw a girl who couldn't cross it. One of the two carried the girl in his arms and took her across the river. Afterward, the two continued their journey. Many hours later, the other monk still kept complaining. "Why did you do that, brother? We are renunciants. We are not supposed to touch women." The monk who had carried the girl smiled and replied, "I left her by the riverbank a long time ago, but you are still carrying her in your heart, even now." The story seems simple, but contains a profound lesson. How many times in life have we unintentionally carried anger, blame, and resentment in our hearts? Even if the event passed long ago, the other person is gone. But in our hearts, their image remains there like a wound that never closes. Forgiveness is letting go of that burden, so we no longer suffer. In life, we sometimes hear someone compare forgiveness to water flowing over a stone. At first, the stone seems hard and unmoving, but as years pass, the water silently smooths its surface, rounding its edges. Forgiveness is also like that. It requires patience. It requires the persistence of a compassionate mind. Perhaps today, we don't have enough strength to completely let go of our anger. But every day, we sit down, we take a slow breath. We remind ourselves that we forgive not because they deserve it, but because we want to be free. Gradually, the heart will soften like a stone under flowing water. I remember a woman in a poor village whose husband left her for someone else. From the time her child was small, she raised it alone, both working in the fields and carrying goods to the market. People gossiped. Some even mocked her, making her feel both hurt and resentful. For many years, she lived in bitterness. Each time she saw that man pass by, her heart clenched, and tears threatened to well up. Yet, as old age approached, she realized she had wasted too much time living in hatred. She began to practice meditation, to chant the Buddha's name, and each time she thought of her ex-husband, instead of cursing him, she silently prayed for him to find peace, to be less greedy, less deluded. Gradually, her resentment subsided, and her mind became clearer. Her children also felt a lightness from their mother. That is the miracle of forgiveness, a quiet miracle that changes an entire life. You can try a small exercise right now. Relax your shoulders. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply, and then exhale. In your mind, visualize someone who once hurt you. See them as a weak person, also having mistakes, also having fears just like you. Then silently whisper in your mind, "I forgive you, so that I may be at peace." With just a few breaths like that each day, you will feel your mind gradually lighten, no longer as heavy as before. Forgiveness does not need to be declared, does not need to be told to them. Forgiveness is a silent process in the heart, like water flowing continuously over a stone, quietly but persistently. When you learn to forgive, you will realize that forgiveness does not diminish you. It doesn't mean you are inferior or defeated, but rather it is the strength of the soul. The one who can let go is truly free. The one who clings tightly to hatred is precisely the one being bound. The Buddha taught that a compassionate mind can extinguish all fires of anger. When you forgive, you are nourishing the seed of compassion within yourself, so that it may sprout into the fruits of peace. So if there is someone in your heart whom you cannot yet forgive, Please don't force yourself to do it immediately. Give your heart time. Nurture it with mindfulness and compassion every day. Then there will come a time when you smile and say, "I am no longer angry." That is the day you are truly liberated. Here, I want you to take another slow breath. Relax your entire body and gently smile. Remember that forgiveness is not for the other person, but a gift you give to yourself. Whenever you feel like being angry or blaming, remember that you deserve to live more lightly than that. Forgiveness is the path that leads you to freedom and peace. Have you ever felt your heart so utterly confused that you didn't know what to do anymore? Your mind as if besieged by heavy thoughts, unable to find any foothold for peace? At such times, we often frantically search for an escape, trying to run from pain in many ways. But the more we run, the more we find ourselves pushed into a corner. How many times have you asked yourself why everything comes rushing at you like that? Why life can be so harsh at times? But do you know that amidst all those storms, there is still a steady anchor waiting for us to grasp, so we won't be swept away? That anchor is our breath. The Buddha once taught that this body is impermanent. This mind is also impermanent, but the breath is the bridge that brings us back to the present moment. When we know we are breathing in, know we are breathing out, then in that very moment, we are living fully with ourselves. Breathe in deeply. We know that we are still alive. Breathe out gently. We feel our heart release many worries. With just mindfulness in every breath, we have found a peaceful harbor right amidst life's storms. The breath is not only the current of air nourishing this body, but also the key that opens the door to peace in the soul. The channel of responsive Buddhist teachings recalls a time returning to the countryside to see a farmer resting by a deep rice field. The plowing dust, the scorching sun, sweat drenched his shirt, his calloused hands trembled. He was tired, but still wore a gentle smile. He recounted that working so hard, he often felt hot-tempered and annoyed. But I tried to sit down, take a long breath in, and exhale very slowly. Doing that a few times, my heart naturally calmed down. I saw that heaven and earth were still vast, and I was so small. At that moment, I felt lightened, strong enough to get back up and continue working. After hearing that, I understood. Even a simple laborer had found strength from their breath. He hadn't studied many scriptures, didn't know much theory, but it was that return to his breath that helped him get through long, arduous days. In the sutras, the Buddha repeatedly mentioned dwelling in the breath. He taught, when breathing in, be clearly aware, I am breathing in. When breathing out, be clearly aware, I am breathing out. It sounds simple, but that very simplicity is a miraculous remedy. Because most of the time during the day, we breathe without ever knowing we are breathing. We live in haste, in worries, in endless calculations. We forget our very breath, the most fundamental thing for sustaining life. Only when we encounter adversity do we realize that simply stopping, simply listening to our breath, all chaos begins to subside. You can try it right now. Sit very still. Relax your shoulders. Gently close your eyes. Inhale deeply, knowing that you are inhaling. Exhale very slowly, knowing that you are exhaling. Inhale, feel the cool, fresh air entering your lungs. Exhale, release all the sorrows in your heart. With just 3 breaths, you will also feel a change in your heart. That is a peace that no amount of money can buy. A factory worker once shared with me that every time her manager scolded her, she would get very angry, sometimes even wanting to quit her job. But then she remembered a friend's advice. When angry, just breathe. Don't rush to say anything. So she practiced breathing in and out slowly. At first, it was just to keep from uttering harsh words, but gradually she realized that each time she returned to her breath, her anger would dissipate like smoke. Later, she recounted that, thanks to breathing, I kept my job and didn't cause suffering to my husband and children during moments of anger. A small story, but it contains a great lesson. It was mindful breathing that saved her life and kept her family peaceful. You see, mindful breathing is not something distant. It is right within every moment we live. When we cook rice, we can breathe mindfully. When we wash clothes, when we walk, even when we are listening to these words, we can breathe. The breath is like a clear, cool stream flowing through a barren desert. The breath is like a steady anchor, keeping the boat from being swept away in turbulent waters. And the breath is also like a mother's embrace, always ready to hold us whenever we are lost and bewildered. Let me practice with you a little more, shall we? Right now, let's pause for a few seconds. Breathe in. You can smile and silently say in your mind, I am returning to myself. Breathe out. You can gently whisper, I release my worries. One breath like that is already a short meditation, enough to refresh a soul longing for peace. As you become accustomed to mindful breathing, gradually, you will find that you can face adversity with more calmness. Instead of reacting hastily, instead of letting emotions carry you away, you will have a pause, a clarity to choose a gentler way of acting. And from that, favorable karma will be created, making your family more peaceful and your soul more open. The ancients had a saying, when the mind is at peace, all things are at peace. And if you want peace of mind, start with your breath. When the breath is steady and gentle, the mind will no longer be agitated. When the mind is at peace, wisdom shines and compassion arises. Mindful breathing is the shortest path for us to return to the Buddha nature within us. So every day, don't forget to dedicate at least a few minutes to sit down and breathe. Consider it a gift you give to yourself. You don't need to be elaborate. You don't need a special place. Just sit still. Place your hand on your chest and listen to your breath. And you've taken a very long step on the path back to peace. My dear friend, when everything is against you, don't forget that your breath is still there. It is your most loyal friend, your most steadfast refuge. Practice living with mindful breathing so that each day that passes is no longer a battle, but a peaceful journey. And right now, I invite you to take a deep breath in, then exhale very slowly. Let sorrow go with your breath so that peace may blossom in your heart. Have you ever asked yourself why we suffer? Why do some small things make us sad for a long time? There are old memories that have long passed, yet remain like a thorn in the heart. Just touching them causes pain. The answer is actually very simple. We suffer because we hold on too tightly. We want to keep everything, to cherish everything, to prevent anything from changing. We fear loss, fear letting go, fear emptiness. Yet, it is precisely this clinging that causes our hearts to bleed, making life even more painful. The Buddha once taught that all phenomena are impermanent. What comes will go, and what is held must eventually be released. If we don't know how to let go, we will be swept away by the endless cycle of suffering. Try to imagine your hand tightly grasping a sharp object. When you first hold it, you might only feel a slight discomfort, but the tighter you grip, the deeper the wound, the more blood flows. Only when we are willing to open our hand and let go can the hand heal. Life is similar. We keep clinging to old things, to sorrows, to hurts, as if holding a sharp object in our hand without letting go. Then we ask ourselves, why am I in pain? Why am I suffering? The Buddha taught that letting go is not abandonment, nor is it indifference, but a conscious choice. Letting go allows the mind to be free, the heart to open, and the spirit to breathe. There's a small story I once heard in a poor village. A farmer raised a buffalo. That buffalo helped him plow the fields and pull carts for many years, like a friend. One day, the buffalo fell gravely ill and died. The farmer was immensely grieved. He kept crying, stopped eating, and no longer wanted to work. People advised him that the buffalo was gone, and he needed to continue farming to support his family. But he wouldn't listen, clinging to the image of his old buffalo in his heart, blaming fate, blaming heaven. So the farming season passed, the fields became overgrown with weeds, and his family went hungry. The suffering was not just his alone, but spread to his wife and children. A monk in the village came to visit and told him, "The buffalo is gone. It wouldn't want to see the human it loved collapse. If you can let go of this pain, you are actually holding on to that love in a different form. By continuing to live, continuing to sow seeds, continuing to care for your family." Hearing those words, the farmer was startled. He wiped his tears, stood up, and began to plow the fields again. The sadness was still there, but it no longer weighed him down as before. He had learned to let go. We are similar. In life, we lose loved ones, lose jobs, lose relationships. We cling to the pain, thinking that by holding on, we can keep what was lost. But in reality, the more we cling, the more we hurt. The more we cling, the less space there is for new things to enter. Only when we know how to let go do we feel our heart lighten, and only then does happiness have a chance to sprout. The Buddha once taught that everything we cherish must change. Nothing is permanent. That saying is both true and sad, but it is also the key for us to step out of attachment. If we look closely, we will see many attachments in daily life. A worker loses their job but keeps blaming the company, trapping themselves in resentment without seeking a new direction. A mother is sad because her children have grown up and moved far away. She keeps wishing her children were by her side, then feels lonely and hurt. A child clings to an old broken toy, crying endlessly and refusing to let go, thus having no space to receive a new one. All these are different ways of clinging. We refuse to let go, so we bring suffering upon ourselves. So how do we let go? Is letting go difficult? In reality, letting go doesn't mean giving up everything. Letting go simply means not allowing oneself to be bound by what is past. Letting go is still living with full love and loyalty, but without letting one's mind get stuck. Like someone flying a kite. The kite still flies high, but the string is adjusted appropriately, not held so tightly that it breaks, nor let go so that it falls to the ground. Letting go is the art of keeping the mind at ease, the heart serene. Now, I invite you to try a small practice. Sit still, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, inhale deeply, and as you exhale, imagine opening your hand and dropping a pebble. That pebble could be a sorrow, an annoyance, or an old memory you've held on to for a long time. Inhale, acknowledging that you are still holding on. Exhale, dropping the pebble to lighten your heart. Practicing this every day, we will gradually realize that holding on is not always love. Sometimes, letting go is love. Love for yourself and love for others. Try to remember in your heart today, letting go is not discarding. Letting go is giving the mind freedom. Freedom from constraints, from the cycle of suffering. Like a bird escaping its cage, it's not a loss, but the ability to fly high. Letting go is similar. It's not a loss, but a gain. When we know how to let go, we truly live. When we know how to let go, we find our hearts open to new joy. When we know how to let go, we truly understand the peace and tranquility that the Buddha taught. So I ask you today to just try once to sit still, breathe, and let go of a small worry in your heart. Tomorrow, let go of something else. Then there will come a time when we can smile and say that finally we are gently walking through life. Have you ever asked yourself, amidst the hustle and bustle of this life, where are we ultimately heading? There are days when we feel utterly exhausted, chasing after work, responsibilities, endless worries. Some toil away in factories, working shifts all night long. Others labor tirelessly in the fields, their backs scorched by the sun, their hands covered in dirt and sand. Still others sit in offices, seemingly at ease, but their minds are entangled in 100 concerns. At night, often looking up at the ceiling, we suddenly feel an emptiness in our hearts, wondering why we feel so lost. Even though we are surrounded by family, friends, and material comforts, perhaps the greatest lack in our lives lies not externally, but within ourselves. The Buddha once taught that humanity's greatest journey is not to travel to a distant place, but to return. He called it returning to the island of self. In life's storms, we mistakenly believe we must find a haven out there, some support from others. But the world-honored one reminds us that the safest haven, the most steadfast support, is where our own mind can return. When we stop, sit down, and listen to our breath, we truly see that there is always a peaceful place awaiting us. I remember a story about a farmer in the countryside. His whole life, he toiled on a small rice field, working hard from dawn to dusk year-round. Life was not prosperous. Sometimes, after a failed harvest, he would be in debt. He often complained that his life was hard, rarely having leisure. But then one day, as he rested in the middle of the field, listening to the wind blowing through the bamboo grove, he suddenly felt an unusual sense of peace and ease. He said he had never felt his heart so light. It turned out that peace was not far away. It didn't require waiting for enough money or waiting for all hardships to end. It appeared as soon as he knew to stop, take a deep breath, relax his shoulders, and accept that moment as it was. He said that from then on, whenever he was tired, he would close his eyes, take a long breath, and silently say, "I am still alive, still breathing. That is enough good fortune." Just that much, and it was as if he gained strength in his heart. The Buddha taught that in every mindful breath we can see the Buddha, not in grand temples or large statues, not in distant mysteries, but right in our own breath. When we breathe in, we know we are breathing in. When we breathe out, we know we are breathing out. Just that alone is a miracle, because in that very moment, we return to ourselves. We are no longer dragged away by the past, nor chasing after a future that hasn't arrived. We are fully present in the present, and that present is the most precious gift. Many people think that to find the Buddha, they must go to temples, prostrate, and chant many sutras. Of course, those are good means too. But if we cannot return to ourselves, then all of it is merely form. Someone going to the temple, reciting prayers with rosary beads, chanting the Buddha's name, but whose mind is still preoccupied with winning and losing, has not truly seen the Buddha. Someone sitting in a simple house, breathing very slowly, very deeply, with their mind dwelling in the present, then at that very moment, the Buddha is already present in their heart. Once I chatted with a factory worker in an industrial park. She said that every day she worked overtime, and by the time her shift ended, she was utterly exhausted, only wanting to collapse and sleep when she got home. Previously, she often became irritable and annoyed due to stress, finding her life boring. But after listening to a Dharma talk, she learned how to breathe mindfully. While working, her hands still sewed each stitch of fabric, but she maintained the awareness that she was breathing. When she inhaled, she silently said, "I know I am breathing in." When she exhaled, she gently smiled, "I know I am breathing out." Strangely enough, thanks to this, her mind felt less heavy. The same job, the same noisy workshop. But inside her, something had changed. She found she had a refuge, not in her monthly salary, not in comfort from anyone, but precisely in her mind, returning to her breath. The ancients used to say that there's no place like home in all the world. But perhaps the greatest home we need to return to is the home within our own heart. Because only there will we truly never be abandoned. When others turn their backs, when life brings storms, there's still one place for us to return to, ourselves. If you can, right now, I invite you to pause for a moment. Sit still. Place your hand on your abdomen. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath, then slowly exhale. When you inhale, silently tell yourself, "I am returning to myself." When you exhale, smile very gently. "I feel at peace." Do that a few times, and you will see a miracle unfolding in each breath. That is precisely the island of self that the Buddha once taught. An island that no one can steal, that no storm can sweep away. You can practice this at any time. You don't need to wait for a quiet space, nor do you need to wait until you have free time. Sitting in a crowded car, you can still breathe. Waiting in line, you can still breathe. Cooking rice, sweeping the house, you can still breathe. Every breath is a step back. And each time we return, we find the Buddha in our own mind. Remember, the Buddha is not far away. The Buddha is in every breath, in every smitahaya, in every mindful step. We only need to return, and we will meet him. So amidst this turbulent life, don't worry too much when everything seems to be against you. Practice sitting down, returning to yourself, taking refuge in the island of self. That is a place that will never betray us. And from there, we gain more strength to face, to let go, to continue walking in peace and ease. Please remember one simple thing today. Every day, just dedicate a few minutes to return to your breath, to return to yourself. That is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and to your loved ones. Because when our mind is at peace, our words will also be gentler, our eyes warmer, and our presence will become a source of comfort for others. Now you can try the following. Sit still, place your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and silently say, "I am returning home." In that very moment, you will feel a sense of peace blossoming from within. And that is the message the Buddha wants us to remember. To return to ourselves, to see that we have never been alone, never been lost, but always have a peaceful haven right in our heart. Have you ever, amidst life's hustle and bustle, asked yourself how to maintain a spiritual mind, Dharma mind, in the marketplace of life? Many people still think that to practice, to find peace, one must go to a temple, leave the city, live in the quiet of mountains and forests. But how many people in life have the conditions to abandon all work, all responsibilities, and seek a place of retreat? Most of us have to live in everyday life, with countless worries about making a living, with the noise of the streets, with the rush of work, and the chaos of life. So the question arises, is it true that Dharma only exists in temples, while in ordinary life we are forever entangled in defilements? The Buddha once taught, the Dharma is not far away. The Dharma does not only lie in scriptures or temple chants. The Dharma is right in every breath, in every step, in every smallest action of life. A person who washes dishes with a mindful heart, a person who waters plants with love, a person who listens to friends/relatives with patience, that person is living in the Dharma. The Dharma is not something separate from life, but precisely how we live every day, how we treat ourselves and those around us. Once a young monk asked the Buddha, "Revered one, I wish to practice, but I still have to support my parents and work to provide for my family. I fear I do not have sufficient conditions to learn the Dharma." The Buddha smiled gently and said, "You should start with the practice of filial piety. Support your parents with a respectful heart. Work with mindfulness. Speak with kind words. If you can do that, you are already living in the Dharma." That teaching was simple, yet profound. It helps us realize that in ordinary life, we can still walk the path of practice, as long as we skillfully return to ourselves. I remember an old woman in the countryside. She stayed in her small house all year, picked vegetables in the garden early in the morning, and swept the yard, and cared for her chickens in the afternoon. People often saw her working while softly chanting the Buddha's name. Once, someone asked her, "You don't go to the temple often? You don't chant long sutras? How can you maintain such a peaceful mind?" She just smiled gently. Washing dishes is also practice for me. Cooking rice is also practice. Caring for my grandchildren is also practice. I chant the Buddha's name in every small task, so I find my heart undisturbed. That statement made me reflect for a long time. It is true that we don't need to search for the Dharma far away. The Dharma lies in the hands that are working, in the heart that knows how to love, in every moment of life. Another story comes from a bricklayer. He worked hard all day under the sun, coming home utterly exhausted in the evening. But he recounted that whenever he carried a brick, mixed a batch of mortar, he would silently chant in his mind, "Namo Amitabha Buddha." He said he did it to keep his mind from becoming annoyed or tired. Thanks to this, even with strenuous work, he still felt at peace. Those who hear the story might find it simple, but in reality, that is the Dharma in everyday life. The Dharma is not far away. The Dharma lies in every action. When we act with a mindful heart, if we look deeply, we will see that every task of the day can become a practice. When washing dishes, instead of rushing to finish, we try to feel the water flowing over our hands. Try to watch the bowls gradually become cleaner. Then breathe very slowly. When watering plants, we can look at each trembling leaf, silently sending the plant a wish for peace, because a plant is also a living being. When talking with children or parents, let's try to listen completely, without interrupting, without rushing to judge. These things seem small, but they are truly stepa in spiritual practice. A small exercise I want to invite the listener to try today. Choose a familiar task in your day. For example, washing dishes after a meal. When you begin, take a deep breath in and exhale very slowly. While washing, pay attention to the sensation of your hands touching the water. Listen to the sound of the water flowing. Look at the soap suds. If any other thought comes, just gently acknowledge it and return to the action you are doing. Continue washing each bowl, each spoon, while silently reminding yourself, "I am washing dishes with a peaceful mind." This exercise is simple, but if practiced regularly, you will find your heart much more peaceful. Some say life is like a turbulent river. We are constantly swept away. But in reality, if we know how to anchor ourselves with mindfulness, then even amidst life's hurried current, we still have a refuge. That anchor is the breath, the smile, the awareness in every small action. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is a lamp illuminating the soul, so we do not get lost. And that lamp, we can light it right in our kitchen, in our garden, in our factory, in our classroom. If every day we live a little slower, are a little more grateful, a little gentler, then naturally life will change. We don't need to seek anything grand. We just need to practice letting go of anger today. Practice speaking kind words. Practice spending a few minutes breathing in stillness. These very things are the path that leads us to true peace. People often wish for miracles, but miracles lie right within ordinary things. A miracle is when we still have parents to honor. A miracle is when we still have health to work. A miracle is when we still have eyes to see, ears to hear. a heart to love. If we can see these things and live fully with them, then we are already living in the Dharma. So when everything is against you, when life is full of pressures, please don't despair. Sit down, breathe deeply, and remember that the Dharma is always present within you. No need to go far, no need to seek anything out there. Just choose to live a little slower each day. Be grateful for life. Be gentle with everyone. And at that very moment, you are walking the path of liberation that the Buddha once taught. Have you ever, in this life, felt as if the whole world is against you? Every door is closed, and the path ahead is nothing but darkness. At such times, we often easily utter complaints, easily flee, or collapse in exhaustion. But the more we run and hide, the more we are besieged by suffering. There is a simple truth that few people try. Instead of running to find an external escape, let's sit down, take a deep breath, and listen to ourselves. Because only by sitting down can we begin to see the light in our hearts again. The light that the Buddha once taught is inherently present within each person. The Buddha once taught that life is a sea of suffering, but within that sea of suffering, if we know how to return to ourselves, we can find peace. Peace is not far away. It does not await someone else to bring it, but lies right within our breath, in every step, in our mindfulness. Sitting down is not weakness, nor is it surrender, but the courage to face what is. Like a person walking in a storm, instead of headlessly running in vain, they choose to find shelter. Stop to wait for the rain to subside. Their heart calms down, and then the storm passes. Life is inherently impermanent, and suffering is merely a temporary guest. But if we frantically resist it, it will become shackles. Conversely, if we know how to sit down, know how to smile, know how to look directly at the pain, then in that very moment, we begin to revive. There's a very simple story about a farmer that I once heard. He was originally a kind person who knew nothing but toiling in the fields year-round. However, one year the harvest failed, his children were constantly sick, and debts piled up in his household. He once thought he wouldn't be able to overcome it. Many nights he couldn't sleep, sitting on the porch with tears streaming down his face. Then, one day, in extreme exhaustion, he decided to go to the nearby temple, sitting before the Buddha statue just to rest for a bit. At first, his mind was still agitated, but thanks to the temple bells, thanks to the scent of incense, he gradually took a breath in, then a breath out. Without needing to try too hard, just sitting still, he recounted that in that moment, he realized he had never truly stopped before. His whole life, he had only known how to chase after food, clothing, and money, never giving his mind a deep breath. And from that day on, he practiced meditation every evening, even if only for 10 minutes. Gradually, his mind was no longer as heavy as before. Debts were still there. Children were still sick. But he was different. He had enough peace to care for his family, enough steadfastness to take one step at a time. And precisely because of that transformed mind, his life also changed accordingly. That story shows us that it's not the external circumstances that change immediately, but our own mind that changes first. When the mind is at peace, we will see clearly. When the mind is clear, we will act skillfully. And when we act skillfully, gradually, sweet fruits will appear. This is also precisely the law of cause and effect that the Buddha taught. Someone who sows seeds in haste, leaving before the seeds even sprout, will never see spring. But whoever is patient, whoever cares, whoever believes in the law of cause and effect, will see flowers bloom and fruits ripen. Sitting down is also a way to sow seeds. Sowing a seed of peace in our mind, that seed will then sprout, grow into a tree of wisdom. And from it, the fruits of peace will appear. Many people ask, how can one sit down when the mind is confused, when worries pile up? In reality, we can start with very small steps. At this very moment, you can try to practice a very simple exercise with me. Find a quiet place to sit. No need for elaborateness, just a straight back. Place both hands gently on your thighs. Close your eyes, or keep them half open. Inhale deeply, knowing that you are inhaling. Exhale very slowly, knowing that you are exhaling. Don't strain yourself. Don't expect your mind to stop worrying immediately. Just breathe and know that you are breathing. Just practicing like that, you have given yourself a precious gift. When those 3 breaths have passed, you will find your mind calm down a little, just a little, but enough for you to start again. Remember that renewal never comes from grand things, but from small, patient steps. Sitting down is also a way for us to learn filial piety, because when we sit quietly, we will remember the kindness of our birth. Remembering that our parents also went through storms, also sat down to continue standing up. We will feel grateful for those who sacrificed for us, and from that gratitude, strength will grow. A child who knows how to sit in stillness will know how to listen to their parents, will know how to forgive, will know how to let go of winning and losing. That is precisely the invisible merit that the Buddha taught us to cultivate daily. And then, having sat down, we will realize that suffering is just a part of the journey, like mud and lotus. If there were no mud, how could a lotus bloom? If there were no rainy and windy days, how would we know to cherish the golden sun? So instead of hating suffering, regard it as a teacher. It comes to teach us to grow, to teach us to sit down. And when we learn that lesson, we truly revive, truly continue walking with peace and ease. Now I hope that you, the person listening to these words, can tell yourself that from today, whenever life seems to be against you, instead of complaining, I will sit down. I will take a breath. I will look back at myself. I will remember that within me there is already a seed of peace. Just by nurturing it, it will gradually grow. And I also hope you remember one more thing, not just for yourself, but when you sit down, when you revive, your loved ones around you will also revive with you. Children seeing their parents at peace will learn how to be peaceful. Parents seeing their children calm down, their hearts also calm down. Peace always spreads, and that is the merit you are sowing. Before concluding, I want to send you a wish. Wherever you are now, whatever suffering you are facing, I hope that you can find peace in every breath. I hope that even if life has many storms, you can still maintain a core of peace in your heart. And I hope that after hearing these words, you can try sitting down today to see that you are not alone at all. To see that in stillness, you have the power to revive. If you feel these words help your mind settle, help you find a little peace, please share them with more people. Because, who knows, perhaps it is thanks to you sowing a good seed that someone out there suffering immensely will find the light. Every small action of yours can be a lamp lighting up someone's darkness. So let's sit down together, breathe, smile, and revive. Peace has always been in this heart. You just need to return to see it. As we have journeyed together to the final moments of this Dharma talk, my heart today is filled with deep gratitude. Grateful because amidst countless tasks, countless noises of life, you have chosen to stop here, listen, and let your soul bathe in the Buddha's teachings. The presence of each person is a precious gift, a fortunate condition connecting us in the light of compassion. If, through each shared word, each mindful breath, your heart found a little peace, a little lightness, then that is the merit you have sown. And if you feel this Dharma talk can bring comfort to a loved one, a friend, or anyone who is suffering, please share this video with them. Each time we sow a good seed, it is one more opportunity for the light of compassion to spread throughout the human world. I would also like to invite you, after listening, to leave a few lines of your feelings in the comments section. It could just be a prayer for your family, an expression of gratitude to the Triple Gem, or simply a few small thoughts from your heart. Those words not only nourish your own mind, but also serve as encouragement for fellow practitioners, so they know that no one is alone on the path of practice. And if you feel these moments here bring stillness to your mind, please press the subscribe button for the Responsive Buddhist Teachings channel. That is not just a gentle tap on the screen, but also a connection, so that every day we have the opportunity to listen together, to meditate together, to walk together on the path of healing and returning to ourselves. I send you a heartfelt wish. May you always keep the flame of awakening in your heart, so that whether you pass through storms or warm sunshine, you always dwell in peace. May every breath, every step you take be light and free, like a lotus blossoming in life. And may the small merit from listening, sharing, and practicing today combine into great blessings, supporting you and your loved ones on all paths, on all